Welcome to B Says. Today we're going to talk about sex in prison. So, when can you have sex in prison? Well, the short answer is never. The long answer is also never. But the reality is, does it actually occur? It does occur, and it actually occurs quite often. Now, if you have followed the news regarding the women's prison in Dublin, California, you are very aware of what I'm talking about. In that particular instance, California and the feds were unable to make a prison safe for the women offenders. What happened there, they went through and fired a bunch of people, said they had taken care of it. In a short period later, the feds realized that not only is there an issue that's fully ingrained in the culture or leadership, no matter what they do, it got to the point where they looked around, and this is the federal government, by the way, and said, you know what? We cannot have this prison here anymore because of the attitudes of staff and what they're doing to these women. And so they closed it, and they closed it permanently. Idaho, believe it or not, is in the same boat. If you're uncertain about this, feel free to watch Ms. Nelson's clips on how it is done. So the way it is described when it comes to what PREA is fairly consistent. If there is sex at all, there is what is to be called a PREA package, and an IR, which is an investigative report, is done. Possible sex is investigated, and then that IR is done. And then a PREA packet is completed and submitted. Idaho apparently receives money for this, and not doing this accurately or not reporting it at all is considered a crime, underreporting, etc. IDOC is guilty of all of this. I personally was actually fired for not reporting a PREA, or that was according to IDOC anyway. So what happened, and there's testimony around this, is IDOC lied. So I actually had somebody approach me with a hypothetical situation where I had already told them previously how to report to security. And when I received that hypothetical, I approached investigations and provided all the information that I had, which included the offender whose name I did provide. What I did not have from that hypothetical situation were the names of the other people who were involved. I had a suspicion, and so I approached investigations and said, hey, this is what I think is going on. I don't have really any information, but I'm going to give you what I got. And so I did that, and I moved on. Later, I was asked to do an IR, so I did that IR, and I was told it wasn't enough. I'm like, well, I literally have no information except for a suspicion, and they're like, we need more information. I'm like, okay, I will try to get that. But anyway, so I provided everything I had. That investigator then talked with the offender that I had provided them with to gather more information. It turns out that the situation was not a hypothetical, as I was initially told in writing, but there were actually two offenders who were having sex, and apparently something was going on that wasn't very positive. And that was not included in my JPay or my contact. So what the offender did, after talking to the offenders who were having sex, apparently, he moved them and then did nothing. So as you already know from what I kind of described a little bit earlier, you're now aware of what PREA is. This investigating officer, Dax Anderson, was required to do an IR for that conversation between the two women and then file what's called a PREA packet. Under sworn testimony, Dax Anderson did not do any of this. Now, ironically, in my termination paperwork, it says that I impeded an investigation. This is an investigation that it was actually started by me. Information was provided forthrightly by me, and what I possibly believed was going on based on somebody writing me a hypothetical. And when Dax Anderson confirmed that it was indeed a PREA, actively did not file the paperwork or complete the PREA packet, skewing IDOC's PREA numbers. This is the way of IDOC. I knew that I was working with not only rapists and extortionists within IDOC, but that I was also working with staff who actively see what is happening and do not report it, i.e. they look the other way, so they are not seeing it. Example, case in point, would be this situation of Dax Anderson. Oh, And if anybody would like this information or that testimony, I am more than happy to send you the pages. In total, there are 3 days worth, and it is extensive. But I can send you either the whole thing or the Anderson's testimony specifically. These staff at IDOC are quite simply despicable, disgusting, and maybe any other adjective that you can possibly come up with when it comes to stuff like this, where they are actively looking the other way. So does it just surprise you then that IDOC actively violates offenders' basic human rights while denying them basic medical care while offenders are being raped and exploited, and not just by staff, but by those employers that IDOC has contracts with? Are you really surprised? It is all a bit much. IDOC then protects the staff, and over time, they are the staff who are promoted into leadership positions and remain in leadership positions today. In my personal situation, I was, for more than 12 months, bullied, intimidated, pressured to work security posts. Posts that IDOC refused to train me for, provide me tools for, and just as important, pay me the equivalent of staff who was the same rank as me. IDOC leadership employed the same techniques and methods that they use to pressure and intimidate and bully offenders into having sex with them. So it should be no surprise their techniques were the same that I just mentioned towards myself, because as I said, they are actually the rapists and enablers of all of those who both do and let it happen. But with me, there was one very clear difference. I was able to leave. I left every single day. And on top of that, I used as much of my personal and sick time as I could. There may have been a time where I had close to 100 total hours for time off and sick, but as things began to get worse, but I should probably clarify that, as I began to see what exactly was happening and how horrible it was, I had to take care of myself and not be there. Now imagine if I had been unable to leave. If I had not been able to escape every day, go home, take care of myself, and try to forget how things are going at work, in spite of me reporting stuff and being ignored. Imagine if I had had to stay there for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Do you believe for 1 second that I would have been able to say no and continue to say no to IDOC leadership? Do you believe that? No way. So if you're a woman or a man in prison within IDOC, they have the handbook literally on how to make you do things. And they deploy that in a highly effective manner. And in my situation, they also utilize HR to do this. I just recently learned that I work right next to and with a sex offender and extortionist. A sex offender who's still being paid by Idaho taxpayer dollars, and at this time also has a pension paid for Idaho taxpayer dollars. A pension that should both be forfeit and paid out to their victims. This is who IDOC is. This is Brian Says. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.